Throughout history, people have feared the beast lurking within. The idea that an ordinary person could transform into something monstrous under the right or wrong conditions has haunted folklore for centuries. But becoming a werewolf wasn't as simple as a full moon and a mere bite. Across centuries and many different cultures, the concepts of werewolf myths have traveled far and wide. Be it drinking from the paw print of a wolf, sleeping under the moonlight, or even something so trivial as wearing the wrong belt. Stories describe strange and eerie rituals that could turn a person into a werewolf. Hence, in this video, we will be diving deep within werewolf folklore, from the most bizarre, funny and weird, right down to the darkest, most frightening and disturbing reasonings. Here are 50 of the strangest werewolf transformation myths explained. Myth number 50. The urine circle. Stemming from France and Germany, if you saw someone urinating in a circle around themselves in the woods during a full moon, chances are they were trying to turn themselves into a werewolf. There's no reported time frame or origin of this myth, at least not one that I could find, but upon further research, this concept at the time at least may have had more reasoning than people think. In medieval European beliefs, magic circles were used to create barriers or invoke supernatural entities. Furthermore, some shamanic and pagan traditions involve the use of bodily fluids for transformation rites. More so, there was something called sympathetic magic, which stemmed from the belief that mimicking an animal's behavior, such as urinating to mark one's territory, would result in that animal's traits falling onto them. Myth 49. Drinking water from a paw print. Have you ever been so thirsty you decided to drink water from the paw print of a wolf? Well, I certainly hope not, because you could become a werewolf. At least that's what was believed in France and Germany. However, this method was an old superstition found in Scandinavian, Slavic and French folklore as well. There were legends that told stories that werewolves left behind cursed paw prints, and any water trapped inside them becomes embedded with their essence. Whoever drank it might be infected with lycanthropy. This coincides with myth 48, which is drinking rainwater out of a wolf's skull. But this myth was seen more as a ritualistic approach, since witches use skulls, human or animal, for their dark practices. Rainwater in itself was seen as a pure or magical element, a medium if you will, able to carry over the shape-shifting curse into whatever object was used. Though some versions of the myth never spoke about instant werewolf transformations, rather a curse that gradually took its course. The human would notice changes over time, like heightened senses, hunger for raw meat or uncontrollable aggression, before turning into a werewolf. Myth 47. Sleeping in the moonlight. Maybe one night you're enjoying the breathtaking full moon and starry night sky, soaking in its beauty. And perhaps you're laying down on the ground while doing so without a care in the world. However, do it long enough and you'll soon be turning into a werewolf. While modern eras associate the moon with having a power to cause a werewolf transformation, the myth goes back to ancient beliefs. Many ancient cultures believed that long exposure to the full moon would inherit one to absorb its mystical power. The term lunatic comes from the Latin word luna, meaning moon, since the lunar cycle was believed to cause erratic behavioral changes in humans and animals. There was also the moon's connection to tides and water, and believed to indirectly affect the fluids inside one's body, causing unnatural changes. Some ancient traditions saw the moon as a portal to the spiritual world, since moonlight was seen as a force of both danger and enlightenment. Therefore, sleeping directly under the moonlight would make a person vulnerable to spirits, curses, or even transformations. However, if you wanted to speed up the process by being more vulnerable to spirits, curses, and supernatural forces, then why not go for myth number 46, sleeping under the moonlight naked? Now this myth, unlike the other two, does actually have an origin. The idea of the moon invoking strange behavior in humans stemmed back to ancient Greek and Rome, with philosophers like Aristotle and Pliny mentioning it. Though, the moon's connection to the werewolf was only popularized from the 12th to 17th century when the fear of lycanthropy in Europe was at an all-time high. Myth 45. The wolf belt, pelt, or strap. The wearing of the wolf belt or strap to become a werewolf was heavily rooted in European folklore, mainly Germanic and Scandinavian traditions. The concept was that certain enchanted items would grant the ability to shapeshift into animals. Sometimes the transformations could be voluntary or forced. Some legends claim the wolf belt was given by a demon or the devil, while others refer to it as a curse passed down from generations. Norse mythology had a similar shape-shifting tradition, like the berserkers who wore bear pelts to channel animalistic rage and fury in battle. This principle is shared with Finnish mythology, Norwegian and Swedish folklore, mentioning stories of a person transforming into a wolf by wearing wolf garments. Myth 44. The eating of wolf brains. This myth stemmed from sympathetic magic as mentioned previously, like the paw print and wolf belt. However, the consumption of wolf brains dove much deeper. Once again, some believe this myth was influenced by pagan and shamanic traditions. They believed by consuming the brains of the animal, that person would adopt its knowledge, instincts, and power, since the brain leads and the body follows. Some variations mention reciting an incantation while eating the wolf's brains, but this version speaks of a permanent curse till the end of your days. Myths number 43 and 42 respectively, jumping over a specific log or stump and crawling through a hollowed out tree. Now these myths were more than just mimicking animal behavior. In pagan rituals and shamanic traditions, trees, logs, and stumps were seen as gateways to the spiritual world. By jumping over the log in the woods, whether haunted or not, would either transform the individual in becoming a werewolf or break the curse that was inflicted upon them. Slavic traditions had variations for this myth by including the individual needed to jump over the log at midnight when the full moon was present. With French folklore, mainly rural France, sorcerers left enchanted logs in the woods for a person to cross over them, making the person become a werewolf unknowingly. Myth 41. Wolf saliva on skin. Wolf saliva had pretty much the same principle, but took a more biochemistry approach. The pores on the skin were meant to absorb the wolf saliva, mixing inside the individual's bodily fluids. Same went for the foods they ate and the drinks they drank tainted with wolf saliva. However, in Italian folklore, witches were seen to conjure up cursed potions by using saliva from a wolf. Myth 40. Rolling in wolf fur under a blood moon. By now, this should sound awfully similar to sympathetic magic, like wearing a wolf belt, rubbing saliva on skin, drinking water from a paw print or skull. However, the introduction of a blood moon makes this myth rather fascinating. The moon has 8 phases: new moon, waxing crescent, first quarter, waxing gibbous, full moon, waning gibbous, third quarter, and waning crescent. The special moons are snow moon, bare moon, hungry moon, and blood moon. The blood moon is a total lunar eclipse and has long been considered to be the harbinger of transformations. The blood moon strengthened supernatural forces, and many cultures believed the moon turning red was a bad omen linked to demons, wolves, and evil spirits. Some beliefs mentioned eclipses were moments when the veil between worlds was thinner, thus making it easier to shift from human to beast. Myth number 39. Smearing one's own blood onto a wolf statue. Blood smearing or blood relation itself goes back all the way to Greek mythology, when Zeus cursed King Lycaon for serving him human flesh as a blood sacrifice. The wolf statue served as a representation of the wolf spirit, a god, or even a supernatural force. By offering one's blood to the statue, it was seen as a sacrifice, an offering and binding to the wolf's essence. This ritual was also used as a transformation pact, like submitting to the werewolf curse and accepting wolf-like traits from totemic worship. Myth 38. Dancing around a bonfire wearing a wolf mask. In occult traditions, fire was seen as both the purifier and a supernatural gateway that was capable of summoning spirits and altering reality. However, in medieval Europe, bonfires and eerie masks were usually spotted during Samhain, an ancient Gaelic festival that marked the end of the harvest season and the beginning of winter, basically Halloween. And as many of you may know, the concept of Halloween was not just trick-or-treating in spooky costumes. Those very costumes were worn to ward off evil spirits to prevent possession. But in this case, witches and sorcerers would dance around the bonfire in a specific manner, chanting their incantations to either turn into a werewolf or hope a werewolf spirit possessed them. Myth 37. Howling at midnight for 7 nights in a row. This myth is based on ritual repetition, the power of the moon, and mimicking wolf-like behavior, though the number 7 is what separates this from the rest. While we may regard number 7 to be a lucky number, in occult traditions and folklore beliefs, it was seen as mystical, powerful, and sometimes evil. This concept was also mentioned in alchemy and esoteric lore. Repeating an action 7 times was thought to finalize a transformation or ritual effect. However, in Slavic and Balkan folklore, howling at midnight for 7 nights wasn't always based on becoming a werewolf. You could also summon one. Myth 36. Sleeping in a wolf's den. This myth regarding the medieval European beliefs was rather interesting and tragic to say the least. Most times, people would be punished or cursed and forced to be away from home. The punished or accused would have to spend the night in a wolf's den. As time passed, away from civilization per se, they would tend to lose their humanity and behave more animal-like. In most cases, the accused never knew they were being forced to stay there for the full lunar cycle. Those who guessed what was happening either escaped or died before, but those unknowingly slept in the wolf's den never woke up human. Myth 35. Wearing an amulet of a wolf's tooth. In animistic and shamanic practices, they believed the wolf's teeth carried all its power. Hence, by wearing its tooth, one could borrow the wolf's spirit in a way, perhaps even causing temporary transformation, or so it was believed. But Balkan and Slavic folklore, while sharing similar stories, told others more frightening. Witches and blacksmiths would sell enchanted wolf-tooth amulets to the people they never liked to curse them. The trinket would falsely be believed as a protective charm to ward off werewolves, when in fact it would turn them into the exact same monsters when the full moon appeared. Myth 34. Touching a wolf's shadow. In shadow magic folklore, a person's shadow was viewed as a part of their soul, like a spiritual doppelganger. Your shadow knows what you do, but how often do you know what your shadow does? By stepping onto the wolf's shadow, one could become cursed or absorb the animal's essence. Though in Slavic and Eastern European lore, as well as Norse and Germanic mythologies, stories about wolf shadows at midnight when there was a full moon out were rather eerie. Some legends told a tale of a man shadow running away from a wolf shadow. The wolf leaps and attacks the man, but the man shadow remains, while the wolf shadow disappears upon contact, kind of like it was absorbed. They believed at that moment the man and wolf became one. After that incident, they witnessed strange and aggressive behavior of the so-called inflicted. Myth 33. Sleeping near a werewolf's grave. When so-called werewolves died, their deaths were not natural like old age or sicknesses. Many of them were hunted in the woods, fields, or executed by trial when found guilty. Most cases mentioned the suspected werewolf would be tortured into a confession, hence their soul never rested in peace. With the public knowing about the trials of the accused either through public notice or by rumors, those who wanted to become werewolves would find the gravestones and sleep by them, hoping the graveyard would be haunted by the werewolf spirit waiting to possess them. Myth 32. Biting into raw meat during a thunderstorm. Lightning and thunder in many cultures were believed to be signs of divine power, supernatural events, or curses. Slavic and Balkan folklore attributed thunderstorms to werewolf transformations, since the loud thundercrack would awaken latent curses. This myth, however, was suited more for those carrying out blood rituals or cannibals that ate raw flesh. Myth 31. Bathing in a river under a lunar eclipse. This myth focused more on moon magic and the symbolism of a lunar eclipse. While some performed these as actual rituals, my interest drifted towards the explanations of a river symbolizing rebirth and purification. Roman and Greek mythology told stories of people bathing in rivers to receive divine favor or supernatural powers. However, the eclipse was believed to corrupt the natural power of the moon on these occasions, allowing for darker forces and powers to consume the one bathing. Myth 30. Being scratched by a wolf's claw during a hunt. When hunters ventured the woods searching for werewolves that were dropping bodies in towns and villages, safe to say their bravery was tested. Now many a times they were successful in slaying such beasts, but some hunters weren't so lucky. If one of them was merely scratched by a werewolf, then they would eventually turn into the beast. The scratch, however, was also seen as an infection, a plague that could be passed on by mere physical contact with the wounded. The same goes with myth number 29, being bitten by a werewolf or surviving an attack. Oftentimes, surviving an attack was believed the curse to have already been taken effect, since the wound didn't kill the victim. This belief also stemmed from werewolves being able to heal magically. However, let me just say the concept of a werewolf bite being able to turn someone rarely shows up, or sometimes not at all, in folklore traditions. That was only popularized by movies, books, and series. Myth 28. A werewolf whispering your name. Some stories say that if a werewolf whispers your name in the dead of night, your fate was sealed. You will become one by the next full moon. This legend mentions werewolves that do not simply hunt with claws and teeth, but have an eerie intelligence. Some tales also mention they called out to the victims just before attacking, ensuring that those who hear their name will never be the same again. No matter how many times they try to escape, something inside them begins changing. Their body growing restless, their hunger shifting, their mind plagued with nightmarish visions. Some folklore claimed that if a werewolf spoke your name 3 times, the transformation was irreversible, while others say the only way to break the curse is to find the werewolf and silence it before the next full moon. This was easier said than done. How do you kill something that already knows you, that waits just outside your window, whispering your name through the wind? Myth 27. Drinking from a stream where a werewolf was previously killed. As mentioned previously in the wolf skull myth, water was viewed to be a medium, but in this instance many folk believed that if a place was haunted, so will the water in said place be contaminated. Not contaminated in the sense of poor water quality, rather cursed, carrying the supernatural dark forces along with it. Myth number 26 and 25 respectively. Burning wolf fur and inhaling the smoke, and being marked by a werewolf in a dream. This transformation myth suggests that burning the wolf's fur and breathing in the smoke can transfer the essence of the wolf, causing a person to become a werewolf. This idea ties into ritualistic magic, shamanistic traditions, and the belief that smoke carried supernatural properties. However, the essence in itself wasn't just breathing in the smoke, but what the smoke actually did, which is create visions of a monstrous werewolf creature. Sometimes those visions can be in a nightmare, and that's where the second part comes in, being marked by a werewolf in a dream. Mentioned in medieval folklore, those who were hurt in their dream by a werewolf, either by a bite or scratch, would wake up with those same wounds inflicted in the real world. This legend might be connected to sleep paralysis, where people reported being paralyzed, marked, or even attacked by shadowy creatures in dreams. Though, some countered this myth by stating the wounds were self-inflicted and resembled more of a psychological connotation rather than a curse. Myth 24. Being a seventh son in a family. This myth has a very unique concept. A child born as the seventh son in an unbroken lineage of sons was destined to become a werewolf. This transformation was believed to be inevitable, with the curse manifesting at puberty or upon the child's first encounter with the full moon. Some versions of the myth claim that only a specific birth condition, such as being the seventh son of a seventh son, sealed the fate of the cursed child. There were many werewolf myths like this one that involved a hereditary curse, where transformation was passed through bloodlines rather than inflicted by an external force. Myth 23. Rubbing a special salve on skin. It was believed a person could transform into a werewolf by rubbing a special mystical salve or ointment onto their skin. The salve was said to be made from forbidden herbs, human fat, or wolf blood, often prepared using dark magic or a demonic pact. Once applied, the werewolf transformation can be immediate or occur under the light of the full moon, with the effects lasting until the salve wears off or is washed away with holy water. Now, can you imagine normal folk being given the wrong ointments for their aches and pains, only for it to amplify and turn themselves into werewolves? Yikes. Myth 22. A witch's curse or blessing. Werewolves and witches were always linked in European folklore. In many French and German werewolf trials from the 16th and 17th centuries, the accused werewolves often claimed that a witch or the devil himself had given them the ability to shapeshift. Some legends claimed that a witch could create a werewolf through a spell, either as a punishment for wrongdoing or as a favor for someone who sought power. Slavic folklore mentioned witches, often called Baba or Striga, were believed to have the ability to turn people into wolves, sometimes permanently, having practiced the dark arts. Myth 21. Carrying a wolf's bone in your pocket for a year. This transformation was rather slow and required a lot of dedication. Unlike werewolf curses that take effect instantly, this myth plays into ritual-based transformations, where a person must commit to a strange act for an extended period of time before fully changing. Similar myths exist in witchcraft traditions, where carrying certain objects like bones, stones, or cursed relics for long periods can slowly alter a person's fate or body. Some versions state that if the person removes the bone even once, the process stops, but if they endure the full year, the change is irreversible. Nevertheless, by the end of the year, the carrier was almost certain not to be human anymore. Myth 20. Eating a beating animal heart. Some medieval stories of bloodthirsty werewolves describe men who, after tasting fresh blood or eating a warm heart, became unable to resist the hunger, leading to their full transformation. This also connects the idea that werewolves crave raw flesh, and those who willingly consume such things were already on the path to becoming a beast. Hence the idea of a beating heart, showing the person's disregard or drift away from civilization and humanity. The next two myths relates to the cannibal tendencies above with a slight twist. Myth number 90. We have eating werewolf flesh. If a man or woman wandered into the woods at night, saw a wounded or dying werewolf, why choose to eat an animal heart and have doubt with the transformation? Why not go straight to the source? Some folk chose this method either willingly or as punishment, whereas others never had the stomach for it, which brings us to myth 18. Drinking werewolf blood. They would drain the wounded werewolf of its blood, pour it in their mead, and sip on that the night of a full moon. And if that didn't satisfy them, they just mixed it with their own blood. That's not me making up stuff, by the way, that's actually myth number 17, mixing one's own blood with the werewolf's blood and drinking it. Myth number 16. Carving a rune into one's own skin. A person who carved a specific rune or sigil into their own flesh, often with a wolf bone, claw, or a ritualistic blade, could invoke the curse or blessing of a werewolf. Depending on the rune and the intent, this act may either force the transformation or bind the wolf spirit within, allowing control over shifting between forms. However, if done incorrectly, the ritual could result in a permanent and uncontrollable transformation, leaving the person a savage beast forever. Myth 15. Swearing an oath under an ancient wolf tree. Most times in medieval or even European folklore from the 15th to 17th century, men who were presumably werewolves were tortured and left to die in the woods. Now, whether they were actual beasts or in their human form, one could never know. Their bodies would be left there, hanging to rot. When time passed with their remains left by whichever tree, those men who wanted to be werewolves would kneel on the ground by said tree and swear an oath, offering themselves to the werewolf cause. Now, to seal their oath, a cut must be made onto their hand while the blood soaks into the ground, hoping the tree roots absorb it. Though, some stories mentioned how the trees were haunted by the souls of the werewolves previously killed, and how laughter would echo throughout the night, amusing themselves of the poor souls that pledged their lives to become werewolves. Myth 14. Holding hands with a werewolf during transformation. This myth mentions a person who clasps hands with a werewolf during its transformation, whether willingly or by accident, may find themselves linked to the beast's fate. The shifting of bones, the heat of exchange, and the raw supernatural force flowing through the werewolf at that moment was said to seep into the other person, marking them next for the transformation. Some versions mention the effect is immediate, forcing the person's body to mimic the transformation, causing their own bones to snap and stretch into a wolf-like form. Whereas other versions mentions if the process is delayed or interrupted, the hand will continue twitching until the next full moon when the transformation is complete. My question regarding this myth is a very simple one. Why the fuck would a werewolf want to hold your hand? Myth 13. Walking backwards around a church 3 times. This belief in walking backward around a church 3 times as a way to become a werewolf likely stemmed from European folklore, since churches were seen as divine barriers that could repel evil. Performing an unnatural or blasphemous act, like walking counterclockwise or moving backwards, was often thought to invite demonic forces or disrupt the natural order by invoking transformations. Just like the other myth where number 7 was significant, this belief system often linked number 3 to magic, curses, or rituals. Myth number 12. Cursing someone with a werewolf spell. The term loup-garou in medieval France was often linked to curses placed by witches or demons, marking someone as a werewolf against their will. Slavic folklore speaks of sorcerers or evil spirits cursing a person, condemning them to a wolf-like existence. There are many incantations jotted down throughout folklore regarding the werewolf curse, and yes, I know that these are merely myths. But some viewers or listeners might feel uncomfortable hearing those, especially if any negativity was linked to it. Hence, best bet was to stay far away from such incantations. However, what I can do is explain how the curse itself works. A witch, occultist, or shaman places a powerful curse on someone, either through a spoken incantation, a ritual, or an object like a talisman or hex bag. The curse forces a person to transform into a werewolf under specific conditions, such as every full moon during certain eclipses or when they feel intense anger. Some versions say the only way to break the curse is through a counterspell, a sacred relic, or by killing the person who cast it. Myth number 11. A wolf-bitten corpse. This grim werewolf transformation myth comes from Eastern European folklore, mainly Slavic traditions. It is said that if a person is killed by a werewolf but is not properly buried, especially if their body is left exposed to the moonlight, they will rise from the dead as werewolves themselves. Some versions claimed that merely being bitten by a werewolf before death was enough to trigger the transformation, while others insist that the soul must remain restless. These tales said the newly transformed werewolf was no longer truly human or even fully alive. This cursed creature would forever wander the land hunting the living and unable to find peace. Unlike typical werewolves that might revert to human form, these beings were doomed to remain as savage supernatural wolves till they are slain and given the proper burial rites, which leads to myth number 10, being hunted by a pack of phantom wolves. This myth suggests that a person does not choose to become a werewolf. Instead, they are marked by ghostly wolves and hunted till the day they die or transform. One of the more interesting finds was in European folklore, mainly Germanic, Norse and Celtic traditions, something called the Wild Hunt. Fans of The Witcher might get excited hearing that, but this is quite different. The Wild Hunt was a group of riders with their monstrous shadowy wolves hunting down poor souls. Rumor had it the Wild Hunt would turn their victims into creatures of the night. One more find in German and French folklore was called the Devil's Huntsman. This hunter, who made a deal with the devil, was cursed to chase souls for eternity, sometimes with a pack of demonic wolves. Myth number 9, drinking water from a well that reflects no face. Now I know what you may be thinking, why are we back with the whole water thing? But I can assure you this myth is quite different and really eerie when you think about it. In Greek mythology there was the river Lede which erased memories. Maybe this myth was influenced by that. This concept involved the victim that had already been cursed in the many ways previously mentioned. Though, as time passed in European folklore, curses, wolf pelts and moonlight bathing became more humorous than true. But those who experienced strange nightmares, sudden aggression, hunger for raw meat, restless nights and strange heightened senses could not help but feel like maybe there was some truth in these myths. One way they tested out this theory was drinking water from a well at midnight in the presence of a full moon. If the water reflected their face, then there was nothing to worry about. But if no reflection showed in the well, that meant the person would turn into a werewolf very soon. This idea behind no reflection being visible was a deeper meaning to show humanity being lost. Myth number 8, being born under a solar eclipse with a wolf nearby. This myth is quite depressing if I'm being honest. It says a child born under a solar eclipse while a wolf lingers nearby was doomed to transform into a werewolf on their 21st birthday. Roman and Slavic superstitions mention children born under eclipses were often believed to be marked by fate, sometimes with deformities or supernatural abilities. This also developed from werewolf trials, where some accused werewolves were said to be born with their condition, rather than cursed later in life. Myth 7, being infected with a demon's blood, not a wolf's. Some old European and occult traditions suggest that werewolves were not always the result of animal influence, but a demonic infection passed through blood rituals, dark pacts, or unholy wounds. Medieval demonology texts mention that those who drank or were tainted by demons' blood would undergo grotesque transformations, their bodies warping into monstrous wolf-like forms far more terrifying than typical werewolves. Some Eastern European folklore mentioned werewolves were seen as hellspawn rather than cursed humans, making the idea of demonic blood an alternate origin. This concept also appeared in some occult and alchemic writings, where certain demonic entities were believed to grant shape-shifting abilities to those who consumed their essence. Myth number 6, wearing a mask made from a werewolf's face. This gruesome myth suggests that one can become a werewolf by skinning the face of an already transformed werewolf and wearing it as a mask. Some variations from medieval European folklore claim that this practice was used by dark sorcerers or cursed hunters that sought to gain a werewolf's power without being bitten. The transformation was said to occur the moment the mask was tied or fused to the wearer's flesh, with their own face distorting into the beast's. Some darker legends mention the mask itself was cursed, whispering in the wearer's mind and urging them to commit acts of savagery just to maintain the transformation. But there was a horrifying twist. Those who wore the mask for too long could never remove it, as it would merge with their skin, turning them into a permanent werewolf with no hope of returning to human ever again. Myth number 5. Being reflected as a wolf in a haunted mirror. Some Eastern and Germanic folktales mention mirrors that could reveal a person's true nature and act as a gateway for spirits. The longer you look into the mirror, the more change in appearance you will see. Some stories claim that these mirrors were once made from black obsidian, silver, or were once owned by witches or sorcerers that dabbled in werewolf magic. There was a story mentioning a man being terrified of the wolf creature that he saw as his reflection in a mirror. In sheer panic, he broke the mirror. However, it never stopped the transformation or curse, rather trapped the man's soul between human and beast, stuck in the veil forever as a werewolf. Myth number 4. Waking with dirt under your fingernails and blood in your mouth. This myth isn't exactly how to become a werewolf, rather being a werewolf and finding out the hard way. Certain Nordic and Eastern European legends says a person cursed to become a werewolf does not remember their transformation. Instead, they wake with aching limbs, dirt caked under their fingernails, and the coppery taste of blood in their mouth. Some victims find deep claw marks on their bedroom door, like something was trying to get in or out. At first, they think there's a monster hunting them at night or an evil entity. But when cattle nearby begin disappearing along with friends and family, their blood-covered sheets and dirty fingernails when waking every morning confirms the horrors they had always guessed. Myth number 3. The supernatural fog. In parts of Scandinavia, an eerie myth tells of a strange creeping fog that appears on a quiet road at dusk. When a traveler walks into the fog, they will hear voices whispering their name, sometimes their own voice answering back. When they ignore it and press forward, a shape emerges from the fog. A massive wolf with unnatural glowing eyes. They say the unlucky soul cannot run. Their limbs grow heavy, their heartbeat slows, and a searing pain spreads through their veins. Whispers turn to growls, and within moments, their body is no longer human. Some say those who disappear into the fog become part of the pack, forever hunting the next traveler to join them. Fog was commonly viewed as a supernatural omen linked to undead spirits, restless souls, or shapeshifters that use it as a veil. Myth number 2. Crossing paths with a cursed werewolf at a crossroads. The cursed crossroads wolf myth has its roots in European and Slavic folklore, where crossroads have long been considered to be places of supernatural power, transformation, and danger. These locations were often thought to be where spirits, demons, and otherworldly beings could enter the mortal world. Many traditions mention crossroads were also sites for dark rituals, summoning spirits and disposing of the remains of cursed individuals to prevent them from returning. Some versions from French and Germanic folklore speak about a lone wolf waiting at the crossroads when the full moon is out. No words would be spoken. The wolf would stare deep into your eyes, transferring the curse onto you. Myth number 1. Mother's Curse. This myth is ancient, rare, and unspeakably cruel. Unlike most werewolf transformations, it has nothing to do with the full moon, a bite, or dark magic, rather begins in the womb. This legend mentions that if a pregnant woman looks at the full moon too long, eats meat touched by a wolf, or dreams of running through a forest on all fours, her unborn child becomes marked. The baby will seem normal at birth, but as they grow, strange signs appear. Eyes that glow in the dark, teeth that arrive too sharp, and unnatural silence when they sleep. Some say these children are doomed to transform into full werewolves on their 13th birthday, while others claim they never fully change but remain something in between. A human in daylight, a beast in the shadows, and a nightmare waiting to be unleashed. Some variations mention that if a pregnant woman broke a religious fast or was cursed by a priest, her child might be born with the werewolf affliction. So there you have it, folks, 50 of the strangest werewolf transformation myths. Keep in mind there are many more, but they are often relating to each other or worded differently. Which myth disturbed you the most? Which one did you find funny? Which myth is going to stay with you for a very long time? Until the next one, do take care.